This video will give some information about assignments, the late and absence policy. So that means if you can't come to class to turn in or get an assignment, or if you're going to be turning in an assignment late, how that will be graded. So first, before we go into some of the details, I want to show you where you can find it. So if you go to your Blackboard page, you can sign in. You can find it in course documents, and you have this folder, class rules and organization. And if you click on that and you go to the bottom, then there is this text which gives you a lot of different details about how this policy works. So take a moment, and if you want, you can find it on Blackboard. You can read it and understand those details. For now, I am going to go forward and outline some of the main important takeaways and give some rationale for some of those takeaways that aren't explained in the absence in that policy. So first of all, I want you to think, so where do you find out about assignments and what's due and everything? That's right, you find out about them in the classroom from your teacher. So they announce what you're doing, they give you the handout, things like that. So in the classroom, that's where you learn about it. And then also, where do you often turn in assignments? It's true, there are some times you're going to be turning it online, but there's a lot of times where, yes, you're turning them in the classroom to your teacher. So what happens if something means you can't go to class? For example, maybe you're sick. Maybe you have a car that breaks down. Maybe there's an emergency. Maybe you fall asleep or you're studying, or maybe you even wake up late. Whatever the reason is, you just can't come to class, and that means that you don't get the homework, and maybe you can't turn in your homework. So, what can you do? One way to try and work around that is you can try and get help from a classmate. So it's a good idea to maybe get a phone number or email address, some kind of contact information from a classmate so that you can rely upon each other in case you miss some homework, and maybe get a couple just in case you both happen to be absent the same day. And also, a classmate can turn in the homework that you might not be able to turn in. So that's one resource. You can go to your classmates who might be able to be in class when you can't be. Another thing is that you can use Blackboard. So I really like to use Blackboard as a tool so that you can have that help. You have that backup in case you can't come to class and you can't get the homework, you can't turn in the homework. So there's going to be two important parts of Blackboard that I recommend getting really familiar with. The first, to get the to get the homework that you're going to turn in, and also to maybe get any notes or things like that, go to course documents. Those have the different folders where you're going to be able to find the correct documents for that day. And then another place, so that's where you're getting the documents that you need. And then you can print out the handouts, and you can print out what you need so that you can do the homework and then bring it to the next class. There might be a situation where you're not able to print it out or something, and that's okay. What you can do if you can't print out something and it stays in the digital form, you can turn it in assignments. So that's also where you're going to turn in your homework when you can't come to class. So that's Blackboard is a great resource if you're not able to connect with a classmate, and that lets you stay on top of the work in class. Because if you come to class behind, it's not possible to catch you up. But if you're and go back and bring you forward, but if you're staying on top of what's on Blackboard, you can stay kind of caught up. One thing is, please don't email me homework. I know that's the easiest way because you just got to take a picture of the handout and send it to me, but please don't email it to me. It overwhelms my inbox. I use my email for so many things, so many types of correspondence. It's just, that's not a place I can keep organized for my for students submitting homework. And it's much harder for me to stay organized. That means that I might lose your grades. I have a much harder time staying on top of things when people are emailing me. So I'm going to make that my rule that please don't email me homework. There is the Blackboard that you can use, so please take advantage of that. Use that instead. Get really comfortable with it, really familiar with it, and figure out your own workarounds so that when you're absent, you're able to use it and take advantage of it. All right, so just to clarify, so those are some of the basic workarounds. I want to let you know about some specific policies. So before I go into the specific policies, I have to show that there are the two different kinds of assignments. So you have regular homework, and that's homework that is usually assigned every class. So it's written on the board, it's announced, it's explained. So it supplements to coursework, and I don't have a calendar of what that regular homework is because it depends on how far we get in the class, depends on what we're doing next class. So it's kind of dynamic. There isn't a set schedule for when the regular homework is due. On the other hand, there are also major assignments. That's the second type of homework. And that schedule is announced in advance, so you can find the schedule on Blackboard. I've distributed it before. So these major assignments are the two Précis assignments, and then also there's 3 papers with multiple drafts of each paper. So you have your regular homework, and then you have your major assignments. So those are the 2 different types of homework that we're going to be thinking about. And it's also going to be, they have different policies. So let's look at those. So one thing to know is that with the homework, it's always going to be best if you can be on time. So regular homework assignments due by the time class starts. So that means if you're sick, you can't make it to class, turn it in before class starts or when class starts. And then also major assignments, they're due by the time posted. So you have to turn them into Blackboard, submit them. All major assignments are due on Blackboard. You have the papers especially, we have to use Turnitin for that. So make sure you're turning it in by the deadline. There are consequences if those assignments are not submitted on time. So, and I also want to make sure that regular homework assignments, that if you're bringing them to class, so mostly with the regular homework assignments, the hope is that you're bringing the assignment to class. But Blackboard is there if you aren't able to print it out or you're not able to make it to class. That's a good backup. It's a good way to submit it and still get the credit. But you still have to have it. But if you're bringing the paper, don't be finishing it in class. Please bring the completed assignment, because a lot of times what we're doing is we're working on it in class. We're doing activities with it. You're talking about it with your classmate. And if all you can do when you're supposed to be having the discussion with your classmate is sit there and not contribute, it's really not a great use of time. You're not able to really engage with your classmates. So there are consequences. If you turn in regular homework late, it's just not accepted. The part of that is that it's too hard to keep track of, because if you come to me the day after you were absent, then I have to check the records, since I don't always remember who was absent and who was not. And so I have to check and, go through that process. So this is just, and also the hope was usually that you come to class prepared. The hope isn't that, it's not always so much keeping, that part of it is keeping that record, but also part of it is you're staying on top of class. So I want to reward the students who are staying on top of it, even if they aren't able to make it to class. So the regular homework isn't accepted if it's turned in late. Major assignments, so that's your big papers, they are accepted late. The thing is, when you turn it in after the deadline, it's 20% off for every day late. So that means that if you have like a paper that's, or like a draft of a paper that's worth 50 points, and you turn it in, and then the grade would have been like 40 points. What that means is that your assignment becomes worth 30 points. So I'm not taking your assignment and saying, oh, it's 20% of 40. That's going to be, 8 points. So it's 42. So it's 32. No, it's 20% of the original score comes off your grade. That is the most you can, so the highest grade you can get on that would be a B minus. And then after 3 days, it's not accepted. So, which at that point, then the assignment is only worth 40% of the original grade. So it's not worth that much anyway. So, and another thing you should keep in mind is that every day that you turn it in late, feedback will be turned back a day late. So that's going to be when there's a schedule for when I'm giving feedback. And that's usually that's scheduled so that okay, I have a week to make revisions and then turn it back in again. So what that means is that you're going to have less time to work on your subsequent drafts. So really, again, it's I want you to think about like, hey, if I can't turn it in, you can weigh the pros and cons of whether or not it's worth it to take that hit in your grade to make your paper that much better. So that's something to think about. And this is all, again, it's all outlined on Blackboard, so you can refer to it there. So another thing is, you may be wondering, why are these rules in place? And a big part of it is fairness. So I grade these papers assuming that every student has had the same amount of time. So that means that if you get an extra day or two, you've gotten a chance to do that much better work, and I should be grading you the same. You've got an advantage on your classmates and possibly getting a higher grade. So I should be grading you differently, and I can't make that change in the grading. So it's just a big part of it is fairness. Another part of it is that if there's no punishment for students to turn in papers late, they can just turn it in whenever they want, then all students are going to probably turn in assignments late. That means that, I would want more time if there were no consequences. So that's what it sort of sets up, that all assignments are being turned in late. That means grading is behind. It's going to take me longer to get assignments back to you. And then that means the class is going to get behind because we can't move forward if we haven't finished the previous assignment. So that means we're rushed at the end of the semester. We're trying to finish the assignments with less time than we need for them. So we're doing things in too short of a time, or we're not meeting the SLOs. You're not getting a chance to do the SLOs are student learning outcomes. That's the goals of the class. You're not learning how to do certain types of writing. You're not learning certain grammar lessons. So that means you're at a disadvantage for next semester. That means you're not, because you're supposed to start 100B after learning certain skills from 100A. And if I've had to skip those skills because we were behind, then that puts you at a disadvantage. So I hope all of this makes sense. You're welcome to read over this, watch this as many times as you need, and ask me questions during office hours or make an appointment. Thanks so much.